When you think of the future, what do you see? Predicting what our world will look like isn't easy, but it's part of futurist Glen Hiemstra's job.
I've always had this basic philosophy that the future is not something that just happens to us. The future is something that we do.
So how does Glen picture our planet in 50, 100, 200 years from now?
What will the future look like in 50 years' time? More technological. What we think of as the online world has now embedded into us, so that we are either wearing or literally having inside of our bodies.
And we'll be using robots more and more, but will they take over?
Whether it's surgery, as they're doing today, or whether it's doing calculations, which then of course raises the interesting question, if robots are doing so many things, then what do we do as human beings? What will be our purpose in life if we have these machines to do these things for us?
Speaking of machines, how will we get around? Whatever happened to flying cars?
By 50 years from now, lightweight, intelligent materials should make the ability to fly safer and more realistic. The group who's most likely to adopt them, I think, actually is law enforcement, because they could take off vertically and then jump to another part of the city much faster than they can drive through the streets now. When we start looking 100 years or 200 years in the future, of course the world becomes more speculative, because the further out you go into the future, the more full of choices the future is.
And Glen thinks a lot of people will choose to ride around in personal flying machines 100 years down the line.
Like a small gyrocopter that might seat one or two people in an enclosed pod that then flies with basically a helicopter blade.
Airplanes of the future will get a major makeover.
There are some airplane manufacturers that are looking at building completely transparent airplanes. It'll be possible to command the airplane to become transparent inside the airplane, so that if you're sitting in the airplane and you want the entire roof to become open to see what the sky looks like.
Amazing, right? But hold on, there's more.
Right now, when you make an airplane, you sort of decide ahead of time what the configuration of the airplane is going to be like. Imagine something that could be changed each flight to accommodate whoever is in the airplane and the kinds of needs that they have, and the kinds of the things that they want. Once you get out to 100 years, I would expect airplanes to be very fast and to be in an era of supersonic flight.
We could be making trips around the world in the same time it takes to watch a single episode of Daily Planet. And we'll go off the planet.
Once we get out 200 years, then I think if humanity has made it, let's assume that we have, then you're in an era of real space travel, airplane flight being something where you hop into space and then come back down. We will be very much engaged in space exploration and living in space by 200 years from now.
The future, according to Glen, looks pretty fantastic as long as we don't screw it up.
What it looks like 50 years from now or 100 years from now depends on what we do. And so what we ought to concentrate on is choosing the best options to create the kind of future that we want, so that we end up with a world that we want to live in rather than a world that we don't want to live in.